Good morning, guys. Welcome to day 100. 3 digits until I am a YouTube millionaire. Happy Sunday Fun Day and happy Spring Forward Day. This may be our very last Spring Forward in the United States, as it does appear that our leadership is really putting a concerted effort into trying to eliminate the daylight savings time because it's an anachronism, no longer needed. But like I said yesterday, I'm going to continue my response to Bailey Shieldbox 7 points to step into your power. I think something I was thinking about before I even decided to start this video today is sometimes history has been painted, because we live such short lives and it can be manipulated by beings that are not ephemeral very easily as a result. It can be painted in such a way as to make the good guys the bad guys and the bad guys the good guys. And if that ends up happening, what you have to do is stand true to yourself, who you actually are, and let the chips fall where they may. Let your actions speak more than the words. It's just the way it has to be. And you're going to have to endure a lot of pain and trials and struggles and all that stuff. Because if the world is designed to basically be an attack against you, the entire world is designed to attack you, then it's just the way it is. You got to be who you are. And some things, even if they are against your underlying genetic predispositions and what have you, might just be that's one of the big reasons. It's one of the big reasons it's so difficult, because you have to stick true to who you are and what your actual morals and philosophies and ideologies are. And when the world is so screwed up, if you, as that beacon, even step out of line just slightly, you're not only compromising the picture you're giving other people, but also yourself. You don't want to turn the world into a jumbled mess. When the world needs guidance because there's so much chaos around you everywhere, that's where the leaders really come in. The leaders, what their purpose is, what they do to actually be real leaders, is they stand true to those principles. I had myself thinking more on, I'm a moron. I had myself thinking more on this through how the genesis of communist China came to be. That's kind of a redundant phrase, but through the genesis of communist China. The only way communist China came to be was because of the guerrilla tactics they carried out. They had the nationalists and the communists. Nationalists, they didn't have a firm enough ideology upon which they were willing to die. And therefore, the guerrillas ended up winning out the day. But that's a side note. I'll get into that later. Let me get to these points that I was going to talk about. Number 5 that she talked about, be disliked. I have a couple points here. Dr. Manhattan, if you know anything about his background story, he took the fall, he was the fall guy, for a nuclear blast that occurred in Manhattan. And he did that so that the world wouldn't go into chaos, so that I believe it was the Soviets and the United States wouldn't go to nuclear war with one another and cause mutually assured destruction or MAD. So he took the blame for it and unified the earth as a result. And it was okay for him because he didn't mind it, even though his compatriots did. They didn't like the fact that he had done it, because he lives a very long life, and it was no big deal. He could just come back at a later point in history and show people, hey, actually, I wasn't the bad guy here, but I needed to calm down tensions so that you guys could survive. Something else I found very interesting in that movie slash comic, the movie was where I'm gleaning much of my knowledge of the story from, is that one of the good guys, one of the heroes, was so pissed off that Dr. Manhattan decided to take the fall that he told Dr. Manhattan, he demanded of Dr. Manhattan that he destroy him, he kill him right there, right then and there on the scene, and Dr. Manhattan does. Yeah, after a second, he just says, fine. And I believe he explodes his head or something. I can't remember off the top of my head. It was many years ago that I saw this. But if Dr. Manhattan has that capacity, then he can also immediately bring him back to life. I don't know why he didn't do that. Or maybe I'm overestimating his capacities, but, he's supposed to be this infinitely powerful being, basically God, or close to it. And then there's Batman, which is in a similar situation, though not as powerful as Dr. Manhattan, in that he took the fall for the things that Two-Face had done, so that they could get rid of all the crime in the government. Because Two-Face basically had sabotaged all the work that they were doing because he broke, if you know anything about that story. The 2008 to 2012, I believe, movies really did a great justice to the story. But Christopher Nolan was the director of that, and he just did an amazing job, as he always does. And then there's the next point I have here is that the bad guys in histories that were actually good guys is my point that I'm drawing out here. Sometimes you have to be disliked in order to save people. There is one particular instance that I'm thinking of that I'm not even going to mention. You guys can probably put the pieces together, though, because it is so deeply, deeply blasphemous. Now, I'm a Christian. You can think about that. Number 6, be willing to stand alone. And this ties in to number 5, being disliked. I think that was the point that she was making. And part and parcel to this, not just standing alone, being disliked like Dr. Manhattan and Batman and all that stuff. In my personal life, I can connect this to how I was treated in the military and other professional endeavors of my life. For some reason, while I was in the military, I remember distinctly that my squadrons in which I worked would constantly cycle between overactivity and underactivity. Now, they say there's a lot of hurry up and wait in the military, but this was manufactured. And I could tell. There was no other reason. Because it wasn't like we were getting ready to deploy or something and we needed to get all of our trainings done and stuff. No, people just all of a sudden would pop up in the squadron, like everybody would be there one day, and then the very next day, they'd all be gone except for me, and maybe 4 other people. And there were cycles like this all the time in my time in the military. And on top of that, I never had any continuity with my leadership. Even beyond the fact that you have PCSs and you move from one duty station to the other, usually between 2 to 4 years. This was even beyond that. This was me losing my leadership, my superiors, every year or so. And that started all the way back from my time at the Air Force Academy. So it went through the entire time I was in the military that this happened. And I was forced to stand alone and basically figure out my own way, aside from the trainings, most of the time, as a result. Because I was the only piece of continuity in the entire squadron. Cycles of people coming in, going out, coming in, going out. And it just was like a whipsaw, left you completely disoriented. And I guess it kind of pulled away all the other rubbish that I needed to not pay attention to. So that was good at least. But I could tell that was manufactured too. And then her 7th point, inner voice. Listen to your inner voice. This being intuition. And then at the same time, it's very well tied into my novel series. where the time travelers of the story can actually pierce the veil of the different dimensions because they live in the space between space when they're observing reality from the teletracer or the looking glass. It's a time travel machine. And they can actually go up near the thing that they're observing, the person they're observing, whisper into their ear from the ether, the space between space, and the individual will hear it in their subconscious. The devil and the angel on our shoulders. So strongly connected to one another. But listen to that inner voice, is what she was saying. That inner voice has led me to where I am today, as well as the times where I refused it. I remember when I was finally coming to the conclusion that I needed to get out of the military, there were times where I remember distinctly, I was driving in my car, for example, I had the Escape, the Ford Escape, which was interestingly named, I think appropriate, where I would literally just get in a shouting match with myself, conflicting with the whispers that were going into my subconscious. Similar to a character that I have in my first novel. His name's Liam Wang. He's Chinese. I was in a shouting match with myself because I didn't want to do something that my subconscious was trying to nudge me to do. And I still don't want to do it, but I'm going to because I have to. I'm okay with that. I've accepted it. You guys can probably imagine what that is. But this has taken a very long journey to get to this point in my understanding and my acceptance of where I am in life. So I say, so be it. Especially if it turns out that me, Payton Pearson, I am a villain in somebody else's story. And sometimes I just need to make my own decisions. More than sometimes. All the time. So, a lot of this discussion of Bailey Schilbach's points, the reason I'm doing this, aside from the fact that I love her thoughts, they're fantastic, is I want to let her know that I'm picking up what she's putting down. And I hope we can keep doing this. So, okay, that's all I got for today. I got through all 7 of them. I'll try some new stuff later. She's probably going to come out with a video today, so maybe I'll review that. All right, guys. Love y'all. Peace.